Nancy Lawrence Hill earned her bachelor's degree from Hollins University and Master's of Science in Mathematics from Virginia Tech. She has been an associate professor at Montgomery College since 2008. She was a Center for Teaching and Learning Faculty Fellow in their 2008-2009 cohort. Professor Lawrence Hill previously taught at Radford University, Georgia Perimeter College, and Mercersburg Academy. While living in Georgia, she volunteered as an anti-racism trainer in the Presbyterian Church.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I was drawn in by the topic of race and wondering what to do with that in my math class, which I think a lot of people were wondering what I was going to do, including our provost, Brad Stewart, who said so at the opening reception. And I was thinking, yeah, I wonder what I am going to do. So as I looked into it, I think about the most distressing place where math and race intersect today is with the achievement gap. And one of the great things about this program is that you have some time to do some reading and thinking. And one of the books that I read that was really helpful was a book called Whistling Vivaldi. Did I do that? No. Was Whistling Vivaldi and Other Clues to How Stereotypes Affect Us. That's by Claude Steele. And what I realized after reading that was that probably addressing the achievement gap directly would actually enhance any stereotype threat that my students were already experiencing. So I thought, I'm not going to go in that direction, and so I headed in a different direction, as you can see. I took a kind of two-pronged approach, looking at education as a civil right, and then looking at elements of success for all. So my fellowship had 4 components. First, in-class journaling, and then as a class we took a visit to the American History Museum. The students were to write a paper or to do a video project in response, and then they presented those in class. In terms of the journaling, it was kind of 3 different areas of journaling. The first were kind of getting to know you. I would give the students a prompt, and I would answer it so they'd know more about me, and then have them write about it. Some of the prompts were things like what they value. I asked them to talk about somebody that they admired who had faced a challenging situation, and then to think about whether that might apply, whether they might get any, whether that might apply to what they're doing in their math class, because I think some found that pretty challenging. I also asked them how salient race is in their lives, because our topic was about whether we were engaging a post-racial society. So those were interesting. I had never done journaling before in class, in math class, and it was really amazing what students would share. Students that I'd never heard say anything in class had lots to write. It was really fun to read and learn more about them. And that probably that affected me more than the students, I think. It was great. That was a great part of it. One of the main things that we did, though, were looking at elements of success and having the students evaluate where they were, how they were doing. So I had collected advice from past 91D students and had them look through that and think about that. This is maybe a little background would be good. This is a 5-hour non-credit math class at 8 in the morning. So you can imagine that there might be some negative feelings. And so some of this was trying to get the students moving, thinking about what they needed to do to be successful. We looked at, I think that a lot of students don't really understand what their expectations are of a college level math class. And so we looked at that, how much time they should be spending. A big problem that I had in this class was attendance and late, as you can imagine, people being late. And so one of my journal entries was, tell me how many times you've been late and how many times you've missed the class and why, right? And it was kind of interesting how they underestimated those numbers. I put the correct numbers in there so they could see, actually, this is what I'm expecting and this is not where you're following through. There's an academic planning calendar on the Montgomery College website. I had students look at that, figure out where they were in there, and think about whether they were on track. Have you met with the counselor? Many of them were self-advised, sometimes not very effectively. This is a critical part in their math education where they've got to make the right decision for the next class. So things like that I got them to look at. And I really think that the journaling helped the students understand what their expectations were of the class and to start to take responsibility. We also, of course, did journaling before and after the Smithsonian visit. At the Smithsonian, our class went together to see the American History Museum. We focused on 2 exhibits there. One is the Invention at Play, which is this wonderfully diverse, it talks about this wonderfully diverse group of inventors, tells their stories and also about what they invented. And so I had students look there, you know, and part of what what I was telling them is that math and science are in your culture. So look for your culture in this display. It's really a family-friendly, it's a nice exhibit, it's very family-friendly, and a lot of my students brought family members with them. Some brought their kids or younger siblings or cousins, so that was really fun. That was nice. One brought their dad. I tried to bring my dad today, but that didn't work. And one of the featured scientists was Ellen Ochoa, a Latina astronaut, and one of my students did a paper on her. She admired what she had done. And then the other is probably my favorite exhibit at the Smithsonian, and that's the Greensboro lunch counter. So we went to the Greensboro lunch counter. I don't know how many of y'all have ever been there. It's a demonstration, and if you haven't ever been there, I would strongly recommend that you do. It's really moving. That's a great moving story about what these 4 college freshmen did to claim their civil rights. In it, the audience members are trained in nonviolence techniques, and then they participate in a sit-in. And those are a couple of my students that were chosen sort of randomly. And it was very interesting to see what they wrote in their journals after this visit. That was very powerful. As we were looking at that, then I told students that a lot of people claim that today education is the civil rights issue of our day. And I wanted them to think about what that meant, what that means, and what the implications are for them. So after that, then I had students write a paper or produce a video. Only 2 students chose to produce a video. With the civil rights, I asked them to think about education as a civil right and what are the implications for you. And then for their other choice, they could focus on a mathematician or a scientist or even a mathematical idea from a cohort to which they belong. So on the bottom on the left is Carlos Finley. He's a Cuban doctor, and he helped to make advances in yellow fever. So that was interesting. One of my students did work on him. The next one over is J. Ernest Wilkins Jr., an African-American mathematician. There were several that did projects on African-American mathematicians or scientists. One of my students did on the Mayan number system. It was very interesting. Here are some of the projects and presentations that I got. I've told you, well, there was a Scottish mathematician. There were some mathematicians in there. It's a little bit easier to find scientists, I think, so I broaden it. One of my students, a Latina student, did a video on education as a civil right. She had interviewed former teachers. It's a great little video, and she was saying, I'm not really sure what it means for me to claim my civil rights, and then, to claim education as a civil right. And then she started thinking, actually, what it means to me is the DREAM Act, that's a really important piece of legislation, and as I look around at my friends, that's something that would really impact them. So at the end of her video was this Support the DREAM Act message, and she everybody presented in class, so she presented this in class. That was great. And then the education as a civil right, what I ended up getting from that was some of this was really good, like urging fellow students to work hard and take advantage of this opportunity of a college education. So it was nice to hear students, their students are going to listen much more to other students than to me saying that. So that was really good. My last slide is some of the comments that I had from students. I'll give you a chance to read them. I think that it was a good experience for my students. Several reported feeling more motivated. I became motivated and wanted to pass this class, you know. Sometimes it was a little too late in the semester, but here's an interesting thing. Of the 28 students that started in this class, I have 11 again this semester. So, you know, I think that we did get this connection that I hadn't gotten in some of my classes. 6 of them are repeating the class, unfortunately, which is not real unusual, but they're off to a good start, and I think they do have a sense of what's expected of them this time through, so hopeful, very hopeful. The last comment is from a student from his journal, where he had written lots and lots about, he had a very interesting semester. He slept through the first test. He had stayed up all night studying for it and fell asleep in his car when he got to school and slept through the test. And I wasn't sure he was going to pick things up from there, but he did. And throughout the course of the semester, as we were talking about education and how important that is and everything, he's decided to become a teacher. You know, he was in auto mechanics before, and he said, you know, I think being a teacher is something that's going to really impact my community, and that's what I want to do. So that's a great story. So being part of this program for me was sort of like a dream. I don't know if you guys remember, but I think every Thursday afternoon that we had last spring was beautiful, you know. So it's just this great traveling down to the Smithsonian on these really pretty spring afternoons, getting together with really fun, interesting colleagues, getting to hear from the curators, you know, and then go through their museum, getting to hear their perspectives, and then being able to provide something meaningful for my students in the fall. So all of that was a great experience, and I really thank the people who helped organize it and who let me do this. Thank you very much.